at Georgetown's Law School. Can you maybe all put yourselves on mute, if you wouldn't mind? I hate to ask people to do that, but this sort of echoing and reverb and all that stuff that we could all do without. So thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, we have a huge turnout today and I'm delighted. And I'm here to talk to you about the early assurance program. I'm going to sort of begin the festivities here and then hand it over pretty quickly to Madhavi Menon, our terrific director of admissions. Angela's here and our admissions counselor, and she's here to sort of talk you through all of this, the logistics of this. I just wanted to frame sort of what the program is all about, the kinds of things we're looking for, and then I'm going to leave it up to Madhavi and then Angela to sort of walk you through more of the specifics and the details. So you all know this is a program we, I want to say invented, but maybe we did, invented for juniors at our own undergrad to sort of give you kind of not special access, that's not exactly right, but a different kind of opportunity than we are giving to applicants from all the other undergraduate schools whose name isn't Georgetown University. So that's what this is. It's our hope to get many of you to be interested in coming and then have a chance for us to say yes to you at an early stage, sort of by the end of, not sort of, by the end of your junior year. The initial thought was, again, assuming you are ready to come to Georgetown's Law School, is by telling you yes in May or June or whenever it is we tell you, that will free you up for your senior year, not to worry about this, and to just enjoy and do productive and terrific things during your senior year. I know for many of you who will be applying, you may be applying to other schools. That's of course up to you. This is not a binding commitment on your part, but it is on our part. So you'll be admitted. And then again, I was there when we gave birth to this program. It was in the mid 80s, I think, or late 80s, I can't remember. And it's been wonderful for us, just terrific. It has grown and grown and grown. And now you all are sort of in the middle of this surge of applicants to law school, which we all have experienced more last year than this year, but plenty this year too. And I suspect this is how it's going to be, certainly as witnessed from how many of you were on this Zoom. So that's the background here. We are looking at you a year before or plenty of years before that, depending on whether you've been out of school, before we normally would. We are exclusively doing that with our own undergrads. Okay. Let's do a couple of logistics. Then I want to talk about your personal statement and I'm going to hand it off. When we consider you as applicants here, we do this without real consideration of any test score that you might have. That's part of one of the bennies of this is that when I look at your file, I will not have an LSAT to look, unless you want to send it to me, that's fine, but it is not, you are not required to have that come our way. Bit of history in this too. Initially, we didn't require any tests of any kind for anybody for the first, 20 years of the program. And then for some reason, the powers that be in the ABA and other places decided, well, that wasn't, we ought to be looking at test scores. And if you can't look at test scores, then you can't have the program. Well, I was not happy with that. I was not giving up this program. It means too much to me and to our community. So the sort of the compromise I crafted was they're going to make you take the test or they'll shut us down. And I don't want that. On the other hand, that doesn't mean I got to count the test when I look at it. So you do not have to provide it to us when we look at your application. This thing got further massaged, and so now the sort of the qualifications here are you have to be a junior at the college or at one of the schools at our undergraduate school at the university, and if you received on your ACT or SATs a score of 85% or higher, then you do not have to send us an LSAT or GRE or anything at all. If you are, that is sort of waived as long as you are 85th percentile and higher on your ACT and SAT. That's fine. That's enough. We're good. If you didn't do that, then we need your LSAT score or GRE score before you enroll. That's it. Not the summer of your junior year, not this summer, but 12 months from that summer, we need to have an LSAT score from you if you did not score in the 85th percentile or higher. That's how this is going to work. So almost all of you will be considered I would say all of you will be considered without a test score. This is sort of our own little program. It's not little, but our own program of test optional. That's basically what we do here. And no other law school is doing test optional that I know of, nor are there any plans to do so. But this program is that. That's what it is. And I get to see firsthand how it changes things and how hard the decisions are. What do we look for as you apply? And what am I looking for? I'll get to the essay in a sec. Last year, we had roughly 100 applicants, I think. We usually get, I suspect this year we'll have more than that. We had roughly 100 applicants, and we admit somewhere between 20 and 25. Maybe that's a guess. It changes a little here and there, but it's right in that zone. I suspect we'll have more applications this year. Differentiating yourself in this pool, in your pool, is a little bit of a different challenge because we don't have that test score to help us differentiate. We can argue whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a thing. And so we won't have it. So we've got to decide on the basis of what you provide. What that should tell you all is that, of course, your grades matter, but we get lots of you who have good grades and great grades and fabulous grades. I don't have room for all of you either. So how you present yourself, what your extracurricular stuff is, who else you are besides your transcript is what matters deeply to us. It does for all 11,000 applicants who aren't applying early assurance. But for this group, that sense is especially acute because it helps break ties and helps give us a sense of where you fit in. So you've done what you've done. You're going to do what you're going to do. I've seen so many of these. You are all active, fabulous. COVID, of course, curtails this in different ways. And we're equipped, and I'm dealing with that all the time, and I will deal with that as well. But who you are, not just what you've done, but who you are is critical for this particular program. That's how I decide. And the biggest part of who you are is your essay. This is what will help persuade us or dissuade us from admitting you. Let me give you just a few tips on what we look for in the essay, and then I'm going to turn over to Madhavi and to Angela. So again, one more time, this stuff matters. Don't think it doesn't. Don't think it doesn't. It matters. Trust me. Okay. Let me give you 4, maybe 5 tips on how to write the right essay here. It's not guarantee you're going to get in, but it's a guarantee you're going to be in the right sort of frame of mind, and I'll be able to get a sense of who you are. First, be brief and focused, 2 pages. Say what you have to say, and then stop talking. Shh. Be done. 2 pages. You're out of here. That's good. Be focused. Don't go on and on and on and on. I want you to present to me in a way that doesn't sort of help me go on and on and on. 4 pages isn't twice as good. It's half as good. I think we all know or sense that it's harder to write shorter than it is to write longer. You bet. You bet. Sure is. That's because of editing. Editing, you got to decide. Well, guess what? Editing's your job. It ain't my job. So edit the heck out of this thing. Make sure it's all gold that you're sending me. Send me the gold. That's first. Secondly, make sure your first sentence or paragraph is killer. Really draw us in. What you want to be able to do, the ideal reaction you want from me is, well, that's interesting. Tell me more. If you wait for a page and a half for me to come to that realization, there's a good chance I've left the building. So start strong and make it interesting right away, right away. Third, write about yourself. I want to learn about you. So whatever topic you're writing about, whoever, whatever you're writing about, I want to learn and know you, not your aunt, not your uncle, not your grandparents, not the Amazon River, not an internship. I want to know about all those things. If that's what you want me to know, great, do it, bring it on, no problem. But at the end of the day, this needs to be about you. I want to learn about you. That's what I'm going in trying to do. So cough it up. A question I get asked all the time, not just from early assurance applicants, but from everybody is, Dean Kornblatt, is there anything sort of common to the successful personal statements? Are there aspects? Well, I'm giving you a few of them, but there's something more specific. The short answer is no, not really. But let me answer the question because it's a good one. Let me answer the question by giving you 2 words to be when you write these statements. 2 words. Keep this in mind somewhere. Those 2 words are open and unafraid. Be open and unafraid. My goal in this is to get to know each of you. That's my goal. I want to know who the heck you are. I can't do that if you've got your guard up like this. This is a different pool. Because of the timing of this, I'm usually reading these files in April, maybe early May. I'm not reading 11,000 of you. I'm probably read 200 of you. That allows me more time and energy to get underneath. I try to do that for the 11,000, but in this case, I can get underneath a little bit. Give me some stuff. Give me stuff. Don't keep your distance. That's not going to help you. I want to get to know you. You want me to. You want it to be about this. Great. And there's just too many of you who are too good. This stuff's going to help me break the tie and break all that big log jam I have, getting all of you all trying to somehow differentiate. So brief and focused 2 pages, killer beginning, write about yourself. The 4th one, I think you're going to do anyway, but, and this, we don't ask this in the application, so it's not required, but you know what, especially given this pool, it wouldn't be the worst idea for you either in your essay or in an addendum to tell me why Georgetown Law School is the place you really want to be. You don't, again, you don't have to do it. We don't ask why Georgetown. We don't. But I am much more interested in people who tell me that without being asked than people who simply respond to a question, why do you want to go to Georgetown? We all know, you know, the cliche, we all bleed Hoya blue, me no more, no less than you. We all do it, and Hoya Saxa and, you know, all those other things we all say as Hoyas, all of us. But this is a different deal. This is the law school. And I want to know why you think, I don't have to know, but I'd like to know, if you want me to know, why the fit is perfect for you and what you want to do and us as a law school. So that's pretty much it. That's how we do this. Again, I want to stress how excited I am about this program, how determined I was in the history of this to keep it. We weren't sure how it was going to work. It works great. Really, really great. I love reading files like this, and I love the interest we have from our own undergrads. I'm wonderful friends with Charlie Deacon, and I know he loved your application when you were a high school senior, which seems 200 years ago now, but when you were a high school senior and you applied, and I'm no less excited to read and hear about you and get a sense of who you are. Okay, so that's my part of this. I look forward to reading your files. Again, Madhavi and Angela are here. They will sort of continue from me and sort of get on about the business of talking to you. It is, let me just close this way and just say to you, you may hear me say this again as you go through this next year or whenever. Let me say to all of you, good for you to want to think about being lawyers. Good for you to want to do this. This is such an important time now. I've been at this a long, long time. I've never felt a time we're getting young people like you all interested in this, and then pursuing this career has been more important. Bam, law's in the middle of everything, isn't it? We see it all the time. It's in the middle of, not some things, everything. And it's such a great career that you're thinking about doing. Go do this. Go do it. Good for you. Stay on this. Don't get dissuaded. I know it's expensive. I know it's a huge commitment. I know that. And maybe you'll be ready after your senior year. Maybe you'll take, I don't know. But the fact we have so much interest right now, the fact I'm talking to so many of you, is terrific news for me. I love it. And this fact that you're all ours, Georgetown students, part of the family, that makes it even more exciting for me. So thanks for being here today. Thanks for your interest in the law school. Thanks for spending time with me. And I look forward to reading your files. I very much look forward to reading your files. And you'll see plenty more of me as time goes along, I promise. Madhavi, are you there? Angela?
Yes, right here. Thank you,
Great.
Cormac.
All right, great. Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for being here. Take care. See ya.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. My name is Madhavi Menon. I'm the Director of Admissions here at Georgetown Law. I'm here with a couple of my colleagues. Angela, who is our Senior Admissions Officer, has been running the Early Assurance Program here for many years now. So she's our expert. We also have our Assistant Director, Brad Riso. So what we want to do now is really just open it up for questions. So whatever questions you all have, whether it's something that Dean Hornblatt just talked about, if you have questions about the process, or just questions about the law school, what Georgetown Law is like, some of the opportunities and programs we have here, all of that's fair game. So feel free to jump right in. If you want to raise your hand and ask your question out loud, or use the chat, whatever you're comfortable with. Yes, we have our first hand up. Am I saying your name correctly? Sharisi?
Yeah, Tracy. Yeah. I was just wondering, if you do this program and we do get accepted early, are we allowed to defer the admission, or does it have to be in the year immediately after we graduate?
Yeah, so you may request a deferral, either if you're admitted to the early assurance program, or if you're admitted through our regular admissions process. Deferral requests are always considered on a case-by-case basis. So you just have to submit that request to us in writing. And so we do have a number of early assurance admitted students who do end up requesting and then getting a deferral. We'll take a year off after college, do something else, and then come join us at the law school. So that's certainly a common path.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Emily.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, I've looked and I see that for Georgetown Law, oftentimes students will take their third year and do a law study abroad program. And for example, I was looking at the program on the Sciences Po campus in Paris. How common is that? And is that something that we would need to kind of discuss before applying for the early action program or early assurance program?
Sure, yeah. We do have a number of what we call semester abroad programs. The Sciences Po program in Paris is one of the popular ones. You don't have to decide that at all at this stage, or even in your first year of law school. That's something that you start thinking about in your second year. It's most common, like you said, for students to do a semester abroad in their 3L year, but it's not something you have to plan this far ahead at all. So you're certainly welcome to. We encourage students to really come to law school very open-minded. The first year of law school, as you might know, is a very structured year curriculum-wise. So all first-year students are pretty much taking all the same classes. You have one elective that you choose in the spring semester, but other than that, it's all kind of predetermined. You're assigned to a first-year section. You'll take all of your classes with your section. So the first year is really designed as a core curriculum to sort of set you up for a very strong foundation in basic, legal topics like torts and civil procedure, constitutional law, things like that. So it's really second and third year that are all electives. And again, semester abroad and study abroad programs are part of those options, but we have tons of other options. All of our experiential learning is second and third year, so clinics, externships, practicums, simulation classes, all of that sort of hands-on learning that we have a big focus on at Georgetown.
Thank you.
Sure. Dominic?
I think Samantha's hand was up first.
Sorry, Samantha, I don't see you. Hold on. Oh, yeah, Samantha, go ahead.
Thanks, Dominic. I was wondering if it's possible to apply through the early assurance program for any of the dual degree programs that Georgetown Law offers, or is that does that have to go through the regular admissions process?
Good question. Angela, do you know the answer to that?
So we also had this question in the chat. So early assurance students can still pursue a dual degree program, but as with other, even with regular students, admissions for the dual degree programs are completely separate. So say you wanted to go to law school and pursue a master's in public policy, you would have to apply to the MPP program separately than you would applying to the law school. Basically, the only difference with the early assurance program is that you're applying a year early and you don't have to apply with a standardized test score. That's the only major difference between applying as a regular applicant versus applying as an early assurance student. Also with the standardized test score, if you have an SAT or ACT score that was 85th percentile or better, you can use that score in lieu of an LSAT, GRE, or GMAT score.
Got it. Thank you.
Dominic, you're up.
Okay, he said that.
Thank you.
He gave the whole history behind the program and like no tests. However,
I think someone's unmuted, but
percentile.
where can we find the dean's certification form, or will that just become clear once the application like actually opens up?
I'll let you take that one.
I'm sorry, I was in the chat. Could you repeat the question, Dominic?
I was just wondering where we can find the dean's certification form, or if that will just become clear as the application actually starts to open up.
Sure. So the application will open, we'll start accepting applications on March 1st, but the form, the deed certification form and the application form should be available on the website starting February 1st.
I see a couple questions in the chat that I'll answer for the group. There's a question about 85th percentile when we're talking about the test score situation. So for early assurance specific applicants, your Georgetown juniors applying this spring to Georgetown Law through this program, you don't need to submit any test score at the time of your application. If you are admitted and you end up matriculating, you will need a test score, and that's for ABA reasons. If you have an SAT or an ACT score in the 85th percentile, and that's just, you know, you can look at your score report, the SAT or ACT, it should tell you what percentile your scores were in. So we're looking for 85th percentile scores there. This is an ABA rule, it's not a Georgetown rule. Then you don't have to take any other standardized test for us. If you don't have an 85th percentile score, then you would need to take either the GRE, GMAT, or LSAT. And that's just before you matriculate. So there's nothing at the time of application. And then I saw another question about, scroll back up. Is it better to focus on getting work experience or to focus on getting research experience? So in terms of the admissions process in your application, there's not one right or wrong path to take in terms of building your resume, getting experience while in college, what types of internships or jobs you might choose. It's completely up to you and your own personal academic interests, your own interests outside of academics, extracurricular interests. We encourage you to pursue whatever it is that you're interested in. What we're looking for overall is students that are passionate about whatever it is that they're pursuing, that are committed to their pursuits. So we love to see growth in a particular area, that you're taking on leadership positions, that you're taking on initiatives. So whether it's research or work experience or internships or just extracurriculars, whatever it is that you are interested in, we're just looking for kind of passion and commitment in those areas. And I see Alexander, you have a question?
Yeah, what do you all consider a competitive GPA for this program?
Yeah, like Dean Cornlett said, this is a pretty competitive program. I would say, and Angela, correct me if I'm wrong, it's more competitive than the general admission process to Georgetown Law. So you heard Dean Cornlett say it's about 20 to 25 students that are admitted through the early assurance program, and we have well over 100 applicants Angela, if I'm not wrong, in the last few years, we've had over 100 applicants.
We had
Um,
around 150 last year. And just like with the regular process, we do not use numerical cutoffs. But generally speaking, I would say the average is a 3.9 or higher, or close to a 3.9. So it is pretty competitive, but we do have people under that. But I would say the average is probably at least around a 3.9.
But that being said, there are people who don't get in through the early assurance program who do get in through our regular admission cycle every year. So don't be kind of discouraged if it doesn't work out in this particular one. Luke.
Could you explain in a little more detail what the process looks like after an application has been accepted or an offer has been granted? What the timetable is to accept or decline that, and if you decline application for early assurance, if you can apply again regular cycle.
Hi, Angela, I'll let you take some.
Sure. So usually decisions are rendered around the beginning of May. It does depend on what's going on with the regular cycle. If we have a lot of applications, which we did receive over 14,000 last year. So I think we sent the decisions maybe a little bit later. And then traditionally, June 1st has been the first deposit deadline. So we do require 2 deposits to reserve your seat in the entering class. The first deposit is typically $1,000. And then the second deposit is $1,500, and that's November 1st. And then after you've made those seat deposits, your seat is reserved in the class. Some people want to know if they can still apply to other law schools. You can still apply to other law schools. The early assurance program is not a binding program. And then if you decide that you don't want to attend, the deposits are non-refundable. But you could also, like, if you decide that you wanted to apply again in the future, like, we're not going to hold that against you. You know, we do understand that a lot of people make different decisions about what they want to do at the end of undergrad, and they're just not quite ready for law school yet.
Hi, what was the timeline again? You said the first, I believe you said that decisions are sent out in March or May?
So the application opens on March 1st, and the application deadline is April 10th. We review all of the applications after the deadline so that Dean Korblad has a sense of the entire applicant pool. And we usually endeavor to make the decisions by the beginning of May. And then the first deposit's usually due June 1st, and second deposit due November 1st.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dennis, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering what would be the most meaningful recommendation letter to get? Would it be like from a professor that you had for like a poli-sci or like critical writing class, or would it be a professor that you had for like multiple semesters, or is it just case by case basis?
Yeah, it does. It will depend on your academic experience and the professors that you know. So I think the most important thing is to have a professor who knows you really well. So whether you've taken multiple classes with them, whether it's been small classes that they've had a chance to meet with you, maybe work with you on your writing skills, on your critical reading and analysis, and those sorts of skills that we're looking for in law school. So a professor that can speak to your individual academic success and potential, and kind of how they can see you as a future Georgetown law student. All of that is great. So whether it doesn't have to be poli-sci, I would say, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be the most writing heavy class you did. That's helpful and that can be good, but it's more important to have a professor who knows you really well and who knows your academic work really well. Try not to get a professor who you just took a bigger class with, got a great grade, but doesn't necessarily know you very well. That's going to be less helpful to the community.
Madhavi?
Yes.
I'll just add, we only require one letter of recommendation for the application. but you are welcome to submit additional letters of recommendation if you feel that you have some other strong recommenders. And we did have a question about the financial aid options. If you could go over that, Madhavi, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So the financial aid piece of this is going to happen a little bit later in time. So while you will do your application this spring and then get your decision by May, if you do choose to deposit and hold your seat and you choose to matriculate next fall, the financial aid process typically is going to take place the spring before the fall you matriculate. So you would do your need-based financial aid application. Let's say we're talking about matriculating fall 2023. You would do it that spring semester. And the need-based, application is similar to an undergrad. You would, apply with your FAFSA, CSF profile, and other financial documents from you and your parents. Parental financial information is still required at Georgetown Law. And so you would get your need-based financial aid package on that timeline. The other piece of the financial aid is merit scholarship, and that process also takes place in a similar time frame. So even though you may be admitted this spring, if you're not matriculating till next fall 2023, the merit scholarship process for you would take place in March 2023. So you would be considered with all the other students matriculating next fall. And again, that's going to take place kind of a year from now. So that's part of why I think it's good for you all if you're admitted through early assurance and it's not a binding program. You still get a chance to sort of wait and see what your financial aid package is going to look like before you have to decide if Georgetown Law is where you're coming, if that's an important piece of the decision for you. Yes, Anthony, go ahead.
Hi, so I was curious, if you're a transfer student and have taken summer courses in different institutions, how is your GPA calculated? Is it all same with the Georgetown grades, or is it like calculated differently?
So for transfer students, or if you've taken any summer courses, you should submit all of your transcripts. We do not do a cumulative GPA calculation like LSAC does for the CAS report, but we will review all of your transcripts. So any transcript that you received, a grade, and any post-secondary classes that you've received grades in, we require a transcript for that. If you took classes as a high school student, we don't necessarily require it, but it can be helpful to include it. Because I don't think that we'll see, when you submit a copy of your transcript, which you just need to submit a copy from My Access, we don't need an official transcript, and you'll include that with your application. We'll see at the top that you received transfer credits, and I'm not sure if the transcript notes that it's from high school or not. So if we receive, when we're reviewing an application and I'm entering it into the system and I see transfer credits, but I don't have a transcript for those transfer credits, then I will reach out to the applicant and ask them to provide it. So in general, if you receive college credit for something, submit a transcript.
What if you didn't receive the credit for those other schools? What if Georgetown doesn't accept the credit? Do we still need to turn in those transcripts?
We require transcript. Did you receive a grade at the school for the class?
Yes, I received a grade, but Georgetown would not accept the transfer credits.
Then you should still submit it. So if you attended a post-secondary institution and received credit of any type from that institution, then you need to submit a transcript.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question from the chat, whether we offer application fee waivers for early assurance applicants.
So we do offer the need-based fee waiver. We don't offer merit-based fee waivers for this. I'm trying to note, like, I'm wondering if there's a way on the form, if there's some way you can note that you're an early assurance applicant, because basically the process for the fee waivers is different when somebody's applying through LSAC. So if you submit the need-based fee waiver, if there's a way to notate that you were an early assurance applicant, you can do that. If you don't see it on the form, then send an email to lawspecialprograms@georgetown.edu and to lawfeewaivers@georgetown.edu. So send them to both of those so that we know that you're an early assurance applicant. And then when we're entering the application in the system, if a fee waiver is granted, I can just manually waive the fee.
Yeah, and another question I have seen in the chat is whether junior year spring grades are considered. And I believe the answer is going to be no, because I don't think you'll have those grades at the time that we are reviewing applications. Do you have a question?
Angela, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so that's correct, Madhavi. We won't know your spring grades by the time the decision-making process has already happened for early assurance. And kind of related, somebody asked about their GPA, like having a rough start in college. You are definitely welcome to include a GPA addendum with your application. And somebody also asked what the second deposit was. Again, it's $1,500 for the second and $1,000 for the first. And yes, I'll list the emails in the chat. And it looks like Emma has a question.
Hi, I was just wondering if your major factors in in any way, and if any majors sort of have a competitive advantage.
Major is part of the consideration. There's no preferred major when applying to law school, whether through early assurance or through the regular process. So we'll consider what you majored in combination with the classes you took. So we certainly look beyond just your GPA. We're looking at your transcripts, which is why we need all of those submitted. So we'll look at the courses you took, how you did in your first year versus your second year and then third year. If you struggled in particular classes, what classes were they? And your major or double majors or minors, they're all part of that kind of consideration. But no, there's no preferred major or anything like that. Is there another hand up? Zachariah, did I say your name right?
Yeah, I just wanted I had a question. I was wondering if, let's say we apply for the early action program and we get rejected, do we have to reapply for the regular admissions, or is it possible to have our application just transferred to the regular pool?
You do have to reapply. So if you're applying next year through our regular admissions process, you do have to reapply. And for that application, you will have to take a standardized test, either the LSAT, the GRE, or the GMAT. And you'll have to apply through LSAC, which is the Law School Admission Council. And so the process is going to be a little bit different. So you will have to do an entirely new application. Carly?
I know the website says that you can submit a 1 to 2 page resume. Do you have a preference for 1 to 2 pages?
Nope. You're welcome to go to 2 pages. Unlike a professional resume, which I know you're often encouraged to keep to 1 page, for law school, I would say for most law schools, it's usually perfectly fine to go to 2 pages. 2 pages is probably where you want to limit it, but we don't mind at all seeing a 2-page resume.
Madhavi, I have 2 questions related to GPAs. Could you provide some guidance on a GPA addendum, and also how the committee has been looking at COVID-related pass-fail grades?
Sure, yeah. So I know that depending on the semester we're talking about, perhaps pass-fail, your classes, what mandatory pass-fail, or they were optional pass-fail at various points, that's perfectly fine. Sometimes the transcript will note when a semester was mandatory pass-fail. So if your transcripts have that annotation, that's great. If you want to provide an addendum and provide some context for what we're looking at, you're welcome to, but also I wouldn't worry too much about that. Honestly, from spring 2020 to now, we've seen multiple variations of schools going into mandatory pass fail, optional pass fail, different combinations of that. So we definitely understand that the last, year and a half has been challenging because of COVID, and the grading has been affected by that. So I wouldn't worry too much about having pass fail grades on your transcript from COVID and changes in policy due to that. In terms of a GPA addendum otherwise, you're welcome to submit an addendum if you have some information or some context that you want to provide for the admissions committee on what we're looking at when we see your transcripts and when we see your grades. If there's something that we wouldn't know unless you specifically told us about it, that's the kind of thing that would be helpful to see in an addendum. So let's say there was a semester where you were sick and it affected your grades, or you had a family emergency and it affected your grades. That's the kind of information we wouldn't otherwise know, and you might want to provide that extra context for the admissions committee. If it's not that, and you're just sort of saying, well, I had a really hard time freshman year, but I got better and noticed that, you don't necessarily need an addendum to spell that out. You also sort of want to walk that fine line when you're talking about any kind of addendum, really, between sort of providing context and information for the admissions committee, which is helpful, and then on the other hand, drawing too much attention to a part of your application that you don't think is the strongest part of your application, which you don't want to do. So just think about whether you think the addendum is adding information or context. And then in that case, it would be helpful. So hopefully that's useful to you.
Madhavi, I was answering something in the chat. I don't know if you mentioned length, but usually a page or less for an addendum.
Definitely. Yeah, just a few sentences, really.
How does the committee view withdrawals? Is there an addendum? If there's an addendum explaining the withdrawal, does that make it better?
Yeah, you usually would want to explain withdrawal because usually there is a specific reason for that. And we would want to know why. So that's a good example of something where you'd want to, again, not extensive, but provide us a little bit of information on why you have a withdrawal in your transcript. Alexander, do you have a question?
Yeah, this question is a pretty narrow focus, but how do you guys view applications from veterans? Because I know for my undergraduate, at least, I was told that applications from veterans were viewed in a separate pool. And I was curious if that is similar with law school applications and more specifically with this early assurance program.
Was there a question about veteran military on the early assurance application? I know there is on our regular application, but I'm not sure if the early assurance asks. Angela, sorry, I don't know if you heard me. Is there a military question on the application for early assurance?
There isn't one specifically, I don't think, that mentions that they are part of an armed branch of service,
So
but there is a question if you have been dishonorably discharged on there, but.
So you'd want to include it, even if we don't specifically ask for it, which I suspected was the case for this particular application. It's not, to answer your other question, it's not considered, military applications are not considered, veteran applications are not considered separately or in a separate pool. But it's certainly something that we consider as part of your background and experience. We have a pretty significant number of veterans and military connected students at Georgetown Law and a really active military law society. So it is something that we definitely consider as part of the application process.
Thank you.
Sure. Oh, I see a question in the chat about the culture on campus at the Law Center, common areas of study, Jesuit values. Great question. If you have a chance to visit the Law Center, not right now, it's closed now, but hopefully in the next several weeks, we will be back open and things will be better to come by and visit. I definitely encourage you to come by and visit the Law Center campus to see what it's like. As you know, we are a totally separate campus from the main university. We're a downtown Capitol Hill area campus, which is great for our students. We are walking distance to the Capitol, to Supreme Court, to most of the other courts in DC, to many of the federal agencies. We are much more accessible than the main campus by metro, which is great for our students to sort of make the most of being a law student in DC. The campus itself is also great in terms of campus community feel. A lot of law schools are just kind of one building on an otherwise big university campus. We have very much our own campus. We have our own law school housing on campus, which is great and kind of adds to that feel of community. We have our own library, sport and fitness center, and a couple of other big buildings. We are also a bigger law school than many other law schools in the country. So we have an incoming class of almost 600 students every year, which is pretty big for a law school. I think it makes for a really fun law school experience. We have a very diverse community in terms of what people come here to study, what kind of law they're interested in, what they want to practice. So there's not necessarily one type of law that we specialize in or that we're known for. There's several. International law is definitely a big area of focus at Georgetown. Constitutional law, obviously being in DC, federal legislation, all of those sorts of areas that relate to being in the nation's capital. But we have a huge curriculum, again, being a big law school. We've got 500 upper level classes or more that we offer every single academic year. So whatever area of law you're interested in, it's likely that we've got courses offered in that area. The other thing that Georgetown is known for, which I think kind of impacts the feel of the law school experience, is a really big focus on experiential learning. We have a very big clinical program. We're very well known for our clinics. We've got, I think, 18 this year. And so clinics are a chance to sort of hands-on practice law in your second or third year under the supervision of a faculty. And we've got traditional clinics that are in criminal law. We've got domestic violence, federal legislation. We've got a couple of appellate law clinics where you're doing brief writing and oral argument. And then we've got more policy leaning clinics where you're doing not necessarily kind of traditional litigation, client representation, where you're doing more research and advocacy and policy work. So depending on your interest, our experiential learning program is a big, big highlight of the Georgetown experience.
Madhavi, I just wanted to jump in, somebody kind of related to the experiential learning. There was a question about, do most Georgetown Law students take on a full-time course load, or do some students work internships or a job while studying part-time?
We do a part-time program, which is the #1 part-time program in the country. It's much smaller than our full-time program. We have about 50 incoming evening students every year, and they take classes in the evenings, and most of them work full-time during the day, all over the city in various fields and various types of careers. So there is that program, and those are people, again, who are pretty much working full-time and going to law school in the evening. But in terms of our full-time students, your first year is a full-time curriculum. You are really limited in how much you can work. You're very much encouraged to focus on your core 1L classes in your first year. Second and third year, students can take externships during the semester. You can do an externship for credit in addition to your course load. And clinics, which are also for credit, can be a substantial part of your course load in your second and third year. But it is really just either full-time course load, or if you're an evening student, is kind of the only other path for doing fewer than a full-time course load. Does that answer the question?
So the evening program is available to the early assurance applicants?
Is that right, Angela? They can indicate that on their application. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to jump in because we had a couple questions about standardized test scores.
Mm-hmm.
So if an applicant's SAT or ACT score is not 85th percentile or better, I know Dean Kornblatt mentioned this, the applicant is required to submit an LSAT, GRE, or GMAT score. Admission is not contingent upon a specific score, but with that in mind, you should know that standardized test scores are part of the merit scholarship consideration process. So I wouldn't recommend, just taking it and not caring how you do on it. But if you do have to submit an LSAT, GRE, or GMAT score, like they're all considered equally. It doesn't matter. So there's no difference.
Could we take the ACT or SAT again?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I see a question about housing, whether it's guaranteed for all 3 years. No, it's typically 1Ls that live on campus. Most of the keyword student centers are on-campus law school housing, and it's primarily 1Ls and some LLM international students as well. But most students move off campus for their second or third year.
Monica, there was another question about having one or more withdrawals on the application. They said, would that make somebody a lesser candidate, someone who does not have any withdrawals? They presume it's on a case-by-case basis, but wouldn't this negatively affect an application?
Presume correctly. It really depends on your personal situation and your transcript and what else we're seeing on the transcript and in the application. There can be good reasons for withdrawals, but it really does depend on how many or why or what courses or what exactly the situation was. So all of that's just considered very much on an individual basis. And Dominic, do you have a question?
Yes, I was wondering if you could speak to the optional diversity statement a little more, and if that is specifically meant for us to talk about specific identities or just kind of anything that we wanted to talk about that's important to our identities in particular.
No, good question. It's very open, so it's the latter, I would say. If you read the prompt on the website of what the diversity statement asks, we're just looking for what you think you'll add to the diversity of our community here at Georgetown Law, whatever that might mean to you. So there's a lot of different topics an applicant can write about. It really does depend on who you are and what your life experiences have been and what you think that's going to add to our community. So the prompt is intentionally very open. So you're welcome to write about whatever it is that you'd like to share.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Han, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if we were to graduate early or go part-time for our final semester in the undergraduate school, is there a possibility of starting classes at the law school early?
We only start 1L classes in the fall. So we only have a fall start for first-year law students. We get to all the questions. Did I miss any?
We did have a question about what about the financial situation of the student is taken into consideration. And then there was another about how many times can you apply to the program, and you can only apply once. But I'll let you talk about the financial situation of the student, Madhavi.
Yeah, assuming that you're talking about the admissions process and the financial situation of the applicant. It really depends on what you mean and what you share in the application. We're not necessarily seeing anything about your financial situation per se as part of the application. So it really is whatever you choose to share and include. And all of that's just part of the story that you're telling us. Dean Crumlett talked a lot about sharing really who you are to the admissions committee through your personal statement, through your diversity statement, and other parts of your application. So your background, where you come from, where you grew up, about your family and who you are and how that shaped you and your experience. If your financial background is part of that, then that might be part of the story you tell in your application, whether it's in your diversity statement, your personal statement, or somewhere else. So all of that's kind of considered. We're certainly looking to see, who you are, what you've done with your life, what circumstances you've, experienced, and how that shaped kind of, what brings you to this moment where you're applying to law school, you want to pursue a legal career, and kind of all of those pieces and how they fit together. So it's, it's just all part of the bigger picture of who you are in your application. I don't know if that answers the question, but let me know if there are more questions about that. We have a couple more minutes. If you all have any more questions, you can also feel free to always reach out to us by email as the application will be open. It's not open yet, of course, but in a few more weeks.
This is a bit of a broad question, but I guess I'm wondering, how should we think about the advantages of applying now versus applying through, I guess, your regular process? Would the big difference really just be the LSAT, or do you think that there's other advantages to applying early?
So one of the, Angela, you can, I'd certainly be curious to hear your thoughts too. One of the advantages I can think of, and I've heard previous early assurance students speak of, is being admitted to Georgetown Law. If this is where you want to be and this is what you want to do in the spring of your junior year, it kind of opens up the rest of your college time and gives you some flexibility, takes maybe some of the pressure off, right? To really worry about taking the right classes and getting the best grades, and those sorts of choices that you might make in your senior year if you were preparing to apply to law school after that, right? So let's say you are a political science major, you've done incredibly well, you want to go to Georgetown Law, you get in early assurance, and you're good to go. But now you've got this year at Georgetown, you've got your senior year of college, and you always want to try computer science, and you're really excited, but you've been terrified because it was going to hurt your GPA. Maybe this is your chance to try something new, to explore something in college that you wouldn't have if you were worried about preparing your law school application. So that's something I've heard early assurance students talk about before, is kind of the benefit of having law school kind of ready to go at the end of your junior year and freeing up that senior year to try something new.
Thank you.
There are no more questions. Again, feel free to reach out if you all think of anything else as you go forward in the next few weeks. Thank you very much for joining us. Really excited to see some of your applications at the law school. And that's it. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I go, can I ask one last question I just thought of?
Yeah, sure.
So you were just talking about how one of the reasons that early applicants love this program is because senior year they can explore topics that they wouldn't normally. When you consider GPAs, are you looking at the classes that students took, or is it more just looking at because I understand there's a ton of applicants, right? You can't necessarily individualize that closely each application, but is that something that you guys take into account when looking at an application?
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The classes you took, the major you had, knowing that some majors have tougher grading or some classes are just more difficult. And so certainly we're taking a close look at transcripts.
Cool. All right. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Judy, you had a question?
Yes, it's just a quick question about the email. So when we have further questions, is there an individual that we can reach out to, or is the more generic special programs email?
So everything should go through the law special programs at georgetown.edu email, and I'll be the one following up on it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for clarifying.
No problem.
Well,
I think, is that all the questions?
I think so.
Good job, guys. Thanks.